So today we're counting down the most unreliable Yamaha outboards ever made. The ones that cause headaches, burn wallets, and in some cases, destroyed Yamaha's legendary reputation in certain markets. If you happen to own one of these engines, yeah, you may want to listen closely. 1. Yamaha F225, 2002 to 2005. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The early 2000s Yamaha F225 should have been a masterpiece. A big, quiet, fuel-injected V6 4-stroke from one of the most trusted names in boating. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, it became one of Yamaha's most notorious failures. Owners in coastal states started reporting the same nightmare. The exhaust housing buried deep inside the midsection was rotting out from the inside. The corrosion would eat straight through the exhaust tube, sending superheated exhaust into the midsection, damaging surrounding components and sometimes even blowing holes through the housing. Boats would lose performance, stall, overheat, or refuse to run under load. Here's the painful part. Fixing the midsection meant tearing down half the engine, lifting the power head, buying expensive updated parts, and paying a tech for hours and hours of labor. Many owners were staring at $3,500 to $6,000 repair bills, sometimes more. A ton of charter captains scrapped these motors entirely. Once Yamaha updated the casting alloy and redesigned the exhaust system, the problem went away. But the early ones? They are still out there, corroding quietly like a ticking time bomb. If you own a 2002 to 2005 F225 and haven't checked your midsection yet, you might want to do it sooner rather than later. 2. The Yamaha HPDI series. The early 2000s HPDI engines, 150, 175, 200, and especially the 250 and 300 HPDI, were Yamaha's attempt to squeeze the performance of a two-stroke with the emissions of a four-stroke. The idea was solid. The execution, not so much. The HPDI lineup became famous for three things: clogged filters, blown power heads, and sky-high repair bills. These engines used a complex system of low-pressure, medium-pressure, and high-pressure fuel filters, plus an expensive high-pressure pump to feed ultra-fine fuel mist into the cylinders. It only worked perfectly if the fuel was spotless. Not pretty clean. Not new gas. Literally spotless. A single speck of trash could clog a filter, starve a cylinder, lean it out, and boom, the engine would melt a piston. Dealers were replacing power heads left and right. Yamaha quietly improved the filtration over the years, but the damage to the HPDI reputation was already done. To be fair, some captains swear by the 150 and 175 HPDI as long as you baby the fuel system. But the 250 and 300? Those engines earn the nickname hand-poured disaster injection. Okay, nobody actually called it that, but they definitely could have. 3. Yamaha F200 and F225 offshore. Early four-stroke era. Yes, Yamaha shows up on the list again. And yes, it's another early 2000s four-stroke. These motors, mechanically similar to the F225, developed a second, equally expensive issue: internal block corrosion, especially in engines used in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Salt water could seep into passages that weren't drained properly, slowly rotting the block from the inside. Owners would notice milky oil, overheating, or random stalling. By the time the problem was visible externally, the engine was usually already done. Unlike the midsection problem, this issue wasn't fixable with updated parts. If the block went, that was it. You were buying a new motor. Some mechanics call these engines 5-year throwaways, which was particularly painful because Yamaha four-strokes were supposed to last forever. Once the updated blocks arrived and Yamaha fixed the casting and drainage problems, the issue vanished. Modern F200s and F225s are excellent, but those early era ones, not great. 4. Yamaha F350, 2007 to 2013. The F350 was a flex, a massive 5.3-liter V8 outboard, the first production V8 on the water, marketed toward big center consoles and offshore boats. It was powerful, quiet, and shockingly smooth. It was also one of Yamaha's most inconsistent engines ever. The biggest issue was the exhaust shifting plates, which could corrode and fail, causing exhaust leaks, overheats, and in some cases, catastrophic engine failure. Repairing them required pulling the power head, an extremely expensive job. Then there were timing chain tensioners, throttle body issues, oil consumption problems, and electrical gremlins that would randomly appear at the worst moments. Some owners got lucky and ran these motors for thousands of hours. Others were on a first-name basis with their Yamaha dealer before they hit 600. The later F350s were dramatically better, but the early production years were rough enough that the engine still has a mixed reputation today. 5. Yamaha 3.1-liter OX66 Saltwater Series. Here's a weird one. The OX66 engines are loved. A lot of people consider them some of the best two-strokes Yamaha ever made. They're fast, torquey, and when they run right, they run forever. But the key word is when they run right. These engines are extremely fuel-rich, carbon-heavy, sensitive to bad fuel, dependent on perfect maintenance. If the oxygen sensor gets dirty, it runs rich. If the throttle bodies get dirty, it runs rough. If the fuel pumps get weak, it leans out. If the owner forgets to decarb, carbon builds up like crazy and things go downhill fast. Plenty of fishermen swear the OX66 is bulletproof. Plenty of mechanics call it job security. The biggest issue is simply the average owner. Most people don't keep up with the level of upkeep these engines need. And when they fall behind, even a little, OX66s become unreliable very quickly. So it's not a design disaster like early F225 corrosion. But as far as Yamaha engines with high failure rates, the OX66 absolutely belongs on this list. 6. Yamaha F70, certain early units. Most people would never expect to see the Yamaha F70 on a list like this. Today, it's considered one of the best small four-strokes ever made. Lightweight, fuel-efficient, quiet. Everything Yamaha does well. But the earliest production years had a problem that doesn't get talked about enough. Oil control rings wearing prematurely, causing oil consumption and low compression. This wasn't widespread like the F225 corrosion fiasco, but it was serious enough that Yamaha issued updated parts and revised piston designs. A lot of early F70s were burning oil long before they should have, even some under 500 hours. Engines that were lightly used, never run hard, or idled a lot tended to show symptoms first. Again, the modern F70 is fantastic, but the early units, not perfect, and definitely worth mentioning. 7. Yamaha F115, 1999 to 2004. The first-gen Yamaha F115 was another early four-stroke victim of growing pains. This engine was groundbreaking for its time. Quiet, fuel-efficient, and hugely popular on mid-size center consoles and bay boats. Unfortunately, a number of these early F115s developed a pattern of valve failures. Specifically, valves that would stretch, burn, break, or drop entirely into the cylinder. A dropped valve usually meant one thing: the engine was totaled. The root cause was never officially stated, but mechanics blamed everything from metallurgy to lubrication flow to poor cooling in the top end. Once Yamaha updated the head design and the valve materials, the issue went away, and modern F-115s are phenomenal. But the early ones, definitely not as bulletproof as people remember. So how does a company known for reliability produce this many problem engines? It comes down to one simple reason. Yamaha pushed technology fast, earlier than most competitors. In the early 2000s, every outboard manufacturer was scrambling to meet emission standards. Carbureted engines were dying. EFI, HPDI, and four-strokes were the future. Yamaha went all in, and sometimes pushed designs before they were fully refined. To Yamaha's credit, once issues were discovered, they updated parts, released revised components, or redesigned entire systems. But that doesn't change the fact that certain engines from this era caused major headaches. Just to be clear, not every old Yamaha is a problem child. Some of their most popular models are legendary for good reason. The classic Yamaha 92-stroke, the 2.6-liter 200 HP carbureted two-strokes. The F-150, one of the most reliable four-strokes ever made. The two-stroke 40, 50, 70 triples. The 300 offshore V6 modern version. These engines essentially help build the Yamaha never dies myth, and in many cases, they still deserve it. So, should you sell one of these engines? If you own one of the engines on this list, the answer depends on three things. 1. Has the engine already been updated or repaired? Some of these motors, like the F225, can run a long time after the corrosion repairs are done. 2. Do you maintain it aggressively? An HPDI that gets filters every 50 hours, fresh plugs, and clean fuel is a different animal from one that gets ignored. 3. How much would it cost you if it blew tomorrow? This is the big one. For some boaters, the risk is worth it. For others, upgrading your engine is the smarter long-term move. Yamaha has an outstanding reputation in the outboard world, and they earned it. But no manufacturer has a perfect track record. These engines remind us that even the best companies can make mistakes, especially during big transitions in technology. If you own one of these motors and it's running well, don't panic. Plenty of them are still out on the water today doing their job. But if your mechanic winces every time you pull up to the shop, if your midsection sounds like it's dissolving, if your HPDI has more filters than a TikTok influencer, yeah, it might be time to think about moving on. If you've ever owned one of these engines, drop a comment and tell your story. And don't forget to subscribe. Your next boat-saving video might be the next one we upload.